from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for March 2025. So on March 1st, not only are we diving into a brand new month, not only are we diving into a brand new chapter of our lives, but we're wasting no time. We have Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money, retrograding at 10 degrees in Aries energy. So first of all, we have to unpack the fact that Venus is the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money. She's all about her relationship dynamics, her own personal worth, what she feels worthy and deserving of, where her priorities are at, her values are at, who and what make her happy, make her feel safe, secure, and stable. And we have been going through a major pivot point in our heart space as, again, we've embodied and embraced this new version of self that is a higher vibratory match with our soul self in comparison to the ego self that has been taking the lead for most of our lives. Venus, again, she retrogrades in specific signs. And in Aries energy, this is going to be a star point when she reaches that 2 degree. This is a particular pattern, the flower of life, so to speak, that when you follow her 8-year orbit, it kind of maps out her particular star points, the interactions in which she is direct, and when she goes to the underworld. And of course, that either makes her an evening star or a morning star in our night sky. There's a lot to it. And if you're interested in learning more about it, I have a multitude of Venus retrograde classes over on my Patreon through that Astro Class program if you are wanting to do a deep dive. But what we have to kind of take a look at is, first of all, this 10 degrees in Aries is the hot spot, meaning we have Venus retrograding here, we will have Mercury retrograding here, we will have our final eclipse event on the Aries and Libran axis take place on this particular degree as well. And so that is highly significant in my mind. 9 degrees, of course, is within the first decan of the sign, which means that we are kind of dealing with wild card energies here. And considering the fact that a retrograde is when the planet is kind of taking the energy that we normally put in our exterior realm that we can express outwardly, it's all internalized. And if you look at it like retrogrades are a time for our soul and our spirit to go through an evolutionary process, then this is going to kind of help you reframe what we're about to go through. So just as a little bit of a reminder here, Venus retrogrades in like 5 different signs, and Aries being the very first sign of the zodiac. We haven't really done this particular retrograde for about 8 years. And so if you want to go back to 2017, we had a similar retrograde period with Venus that, started off in the Aries energy and backtracked into the Pisces energy. And that's what we will be doing with this Venus retrograde. We entered into Venus's pre-retrograde shadow period at 24 degrees in Pisces energy on January 28th. And so, the whole month of February, technically speaking, was Venus kind of, being jittery in that heart space. There's been a lot of heart activations. There's been a lot of pivot points going on in our worth and our values and our relationships and our money matters as well. Those particular topics and themes are definitely going to come full circle by the time she comes out of her retrograde, which of course will not be until April 12th. And then she's going to be in a post-retrograde shadow period until May 16th. And so again, if you've taken the time to listen to the 2025 year ahead overview and you actually took part in mapping out your own chart in that mini course that I made available at the beginning of the year, you would know that the Aries and Pisces cusp in your chart is what is going to be activated the most throughout this whole course of this year, because Venus is retrograding on this cusp. Mercury is retrograding on this cusp. We have Saturn and Neptune entering into their new signs in Aries energies, and then eventually retrograding back into the Pisces energy on this cusp as well. We have the North Node that just transited this cusp as well. So there's a lot of time, energy, and attention being spent on the endings, the closures needed, Pisces energy, in order for the beginnings, the initiation of a new chapter, a new version of self to actually take place. That's the Aries energy. So we are going retrograde here, March 1st at 10 degrees. And again, this is like Venus moving into the underworld to beat herself up, break herself down, do the shadow work in order for her to build herself up in a much better way. And it is not fun, nor is it easy. And with some of the other things going on in the cosmos right now, we're definitely going to have a magnification, a major focus on the people, places, and things that the old version of self had built out of a certain level of self-worth, self-love, self-confidence, self-esteem of that version of self, and where it is at that we're at now, vibrating with a different resonance, a different frequency within ourselves. We're building ourselves up. We are, doing the shadow work in order to eliminate a lot of the pain, the trauma, the fear of the ego programming. And with that comes major changes, not only in the way that we feel about ourselves, but with the people, places, and things that we choose to attach ourselves to with this new level of worth, of self-esteem, of values. So retrograde is a time for us to reassess, reevaluate, revisit, revise, restructure, rebuild, recalibrate. And because this is Venus, this is who we are and what we value, what actually matters to us. And, a lot of people fear retrograde periods. This should not be a fearful thing at all. This is a major change, a major transformation, but that's what needs to be done in order to be living a life that not only looks good, but that feels good as well. Many of us are stuck in a loop doing the same old thing, expecting a different result. And we all know that the change needs to happen within us first and foremost before we're going to see those changes in the physical realm. This is what retrogrades are all about. This is what helps us to be the evolved, growing, healed version of self that, again, is the initial stages of the changes that need to be made before we see those physical changes in our exterior realm. So it is nothing to fear. It is a difficult emotional time because Venus rules over the heart space. She rules over, again, our worth, our value, our happiness, our joy, our safety, our security, our stability. That's why relationships and money matters always take a hit. Now, that being said, if you are in a relationship dynamic that is not for you, that probably was never for you, but that you attracted out of the pain and trauma version of self, and you've done the work within yourself to heal those particular parts, you may find that that relationship comes up for renewal. Now, whether you renew that relationship, that contract, or whether you sever ties, or let's say that you're in a relationship dynamic that you're supposed to be in, it's a karmically fated relationship, but there's a new level of intimacy, a new level of vulnerability, a new level of connection, new roles and responsibilities that need to take that relationship dynamic to the next level. Those particular aspects are going to be focused upon through Venus's retrograde. So yes, relationships, if you're in a relationship that isn't for you, it will likely fall apart. If you are in a relationship that is for you, but there is options and opportunities to level up and to take that relationship to the next level of commitment, that is going to be a major focus for you while Venus is retrograde. And not that I want to talk about, fated relationships, but if you're not in a relationship and you meet somebody new while Venus is retrograde, it's kind of a wild card. Some astrologers would say, you know what, don't make any decisions, don't make any commitments, don't get too involved until Venus actually moves forward. And other astrologers would say, take that as a sign from the universe that this is a fated event, that this connection needed to happen at this particular juncture. Either way, there's some sort of focus on your relationship dynamics changing. And there's another major focus on your financial situation changing as well. And so, it's not really advised to start anything new under a retrograde. It's not advised specifically where we're talking about Venus to go out and cut all your hair off, because there's likelihood that you're going to second guess yourself when she goes direct. Aesthetics are a big thing for Venus. Identity is a big thing for Venus. And so there are all of these different facets of what Venus actually represents that could come to the forefront depending on your own individual chart, depending on the aspects taking place in your own individual chart. It can manifest in a different way. What this is a great time for is, again, revisiting, revising, reanalyzing, reassessing, rethinking, revisiting topics and themes specifically around love and money that maybe you've been avoiding or sweeping under the rug, so to speak. There's a lot going on. And so this isn't a great time to jump into new commitments, to try to start something new, specifically where money matters, aesthetics, and loves and relationships are concerned. However, this is a transition period, so we have to be open to what it is that we could be doing differently. We just technically don't want to make those types of decisions or commitments until she goes direct. So of course, when we talk about retrogrades, specifically where Venus is concerned, there's always a high probability that old connections, old lovers, old relationships, whether they're good or bad or, in between, doesn't matter. There's some sort of reappearance, resurfacing, either physically speaking, like these people just come out of nowheres and you bump into, old lovers or old relationship dynamics. It could be in a dream state. It could just be nostalgia or reflection on that particular relationship dynamic, because obviously there are lessons that need to be plucked out of that and integrated and applied to your present moment, to the day to day. But this is going to be a little bit of a different retrograde just because it's taking place in Aries energy. Aries energy is a fire sign. It's a cardinal fire sign. There's a lot of aggression there. There's a lot swirling around identity. And so from March 1st to the 27th, we're going to be in that Aries energy. From the 27th, taking us into April, we're going to be in Pisces energy. And so if we were talking about a movie, it's as if, the star of the movie, let's say, gets herself in a situation, a little bit of a love triangle or a love situation where she doesn't know up from down or back from, forward or left from right. She's all over the place. She's all confused. She's questioning her relationships. She's questioning her identity. And then when she retrogrades back into the Pisces energy, that's when the emotional the emotional impact of this transition actually hits her. And when the endings and the closures need to take place in order for her to, let's say, spider off and kind of travel a new path or pursue a new identity or pursue a new relationship or whatever the case may be. And so in this Aries energy, of course, frustrations are going to be high, restlessness is going to be high. There's a lot of aggression that is going to be kind of propelling us to reassess, to reanalyze. And then as she kind of shifts back into that Pisces energy, we're going to have to be tested in our faith, tested in our emotional abilities to wrap up, provide endings and closures to that pain and trauma, to that particular cycle before we kind of move on and move forward. And so, yes, old people, old friends, old connections, old relationship dynamics can definitely reappear. Let me just say, oftentimes than not, when people reappear, most of the time people say, oh, it must be fated. This person must be coming back into my life for a second chance. Nope, not necessarily. Most oftentimes than not, I would say that they are coming back to test to see if you're still stupid. To see if you're still in a low self-worth, low self-confidence, low self-esteem position. And I mean that in the nicest kind of way, but a lot of times people romanticize people coming back from their past and the whole second chance, second shot at love type of thing, when realistically speaking, they're coming back to see if you learned your lesson. They're coming back to see whether or not you're in the same vibration and frequency that attracted them in the first place, or whether you've done the work to kind of grow up and evolve and grow through the pains and the traumas and the life lessons and the whole situation and circumstance that initially speaking, that person entered into your life to teach you. And so please don't fall victim to this fairy tale type of drama. Very few instances, people from your past coming back are a good thing. Okay. It's just a test to see where it is that you're at, how much you've learned, and how much you've grown. There is going to be a lot of emotional drama, and we just have to expect that. And we have to expect a high level of confusion with trying to figure out how it is that we are feeling about some of the people, places, and things that we have found ourselves attached to. And in the Aries energy, of course, it's opposite Libra energy that Venus naturally rules over. So there is a lot of tug of war going on. There is a lot of tension. The want, need, and desire to fall back into codependent relationships, into people-pleasing relationships, into relationships that aren't necessarily serving you in the way that they need to be serving you. All of that is a temptation. And because we are kind of, in the darker parts of our experiences, being in the underworld, especially in the Aries energy, there's a lot of, I'm going to say, pettiness, childishness that takes place, a lot of naivety that takes place, a lot of just, I'm going to say, an overwhelming amount of immature expressions when it comes to our thoughts, when it comes to our feelings. And that is going to definitely muddy the water, so to speak. Now, that being said, when we actually shift into the Pisces energy again, that's going to be the emotional cleansing and purification of a lot of the energies that are going to be very hard to manage in that Aries section of your chart. The Pisces energy is going to kind of remove that junk and gunk. It's going to then refresh, renew our soul and our spirit. It is going to build up our trust, our hopes, our faith, our wishes, our dreams again. It's going to be a good thing, but we're not going to get there until, again, early April-ish. And so, the cha-cha-cha between where it is that we're eager beavers, ready to move on, ready to move forward, jumping into something new, that is very much there, but we're not able to do any of that because we're in reflection mode. And the frustration of that, especially still in the Aries energy, is going to be very overwhelming. And the, I'm going to say the impulse that is going to take over, pushing us to act on our affections or act on our emotions, going to be hard to resist that. We have to resist it to a certain extent because that's ego programming, reacting to situations when we need to be aligning with our higher self and therefore responding from the observer type of mentality. Now, most of the energy is focused on relationship dynamics, who needs to stay, who needs to go. But money matters are definitely a thing as well. And when you understand that your financial situation in this physical realm is very much tied to the way that you feel about yourself, there is a breakdown versus breakthrough energy that Venus goes through a retrograde that is going to have a major impact on your financial state. And when we come out of this retrograde in the higher version of self and in the more, I'm going to say, safe, secure, stable version of self with a new level of value and self-love and self-worth within ourselves, we're going to have new financial opportunities be available to us that we couldn't even imagine coming into this retrograde. And so again, there is this push and pull, this ebb and flow that isn't going to feel good. Our senses are overwhelmed. We're confused as F, not only in our heart space, but again, if you've listened to the March overview or the 2025 year ahead overview, you would know that Mercury joins Venus in the underworld when he goes retrograde, and they walk hand in hand together through this particular retrograde, which means that our heart space and our head space not in control, our heart and our head space on differing sides of the coin, if you will. But by the time that Venus and Mercury come out of their retrogrades, again in April, our heart and our head are going to be on a new level, new vibration. They're going to be in sync with one another, and we're going to have a new, let's call it, understanding of what we want, what we need, what we desire, and what we actually have to do to get it. So, of course, there are some pivotal points in this retrograde story that I do welcome you to kind of stay in alignment with. Again, please download your March energy guide if you haven't already. That is a key resource to staying in alignment with these energies and to piecing together this very, very interesting cosmic puzzle that we are going to be thrown into here with Venus's retrograde.